Thank you very much, Olin, and good morning to you in the States, and good afternoon stroke good evening to those of you in Asia. It's a pleasure to be with you. I'm sorry that we're not there in person. Ironically, Victor Heddenberg, Mark Stoddard and I were coming out to India for a BGA roadshow just 1 week after the travel ban came in. However, as soon as we can travel again, we will be back in India with all of you, hopefully probably, in my view, summer, early autumn 2021. Of course, we know all the problems of the pandemic, but I thought I would start by picking out what I have seen across the network, the Amba and BGA networks worldwide, which together is some 400 schools. The two positives from the pandemic, which I believe we can take forward. And the first is, and it was beautifully expressed, I'm a Harvard Business School alum, and I was on a call with the Dean a couple of months ago. And Harvard talked about waking up on the 1st of January 2020, and it was 2020, but that in technological terms, for our industry, we'll feel we're going to bed on December 31st this year, 2030. So what the pandemic has done is it has forced technological change in our education sector that was coming anyway. And I'm seeing a lot of very good standalone 100% online courses, some very clever blended learning courses, which I believe will be the way forward. And then, of course, there will be some return to full on campus. So I think although there's been a lot of pain, this enforced look at teaching 100% online, although painful, has brought enforced change, and I think that's a good thing. And I think that will stand all business schools who've started to embrace it in good stead going forward, for two reasons. One is, whether the pandemic goes completely or it doesn't, you will be able to teach 100% online if you need to. And that's a great forward step, but it's also a very important insurance policy for business schools, because what happens if this pandemic comes back or a different strain of virus comes in and causes international chaos again? And I think one thing that every dean has realized around the world is we don't want to be caught out again in terms of learning or teaching should another pandemic close our campus in future. So I think that's a good thing, and I would encourage and urge all schools around the world to look at the best examples and use many in the Amba and BGA network of how schools have moved quickly to online learning, what they've done. Have they shared their content and built that content, budgeted for by 2 or 3 non-competing schools together to afford it? And then I think the second positive I would mention this morning is that we have been amazed by how robust demand has maintained in the market for general business masters and for MBAs. So the MBA market around the world for intake this autumn globally is at least stable, and in some cases, obviously for part-time MBAs, increased. And for general masters in management, some schools are recording record intake. And it goes once again to show that by and large, the business school market, the postgraduate business school market, is counter-cyclical to the economy. We saw this with the financial crash in 2008. 2009 was a very good year for the MBA market. And in an even more serious pandemic, it's standing up well. So I think we should take confidence from that. And I think the two reasons are quite simple. Number one, if you're in a market where there are fewer jobs and more job insecurity, now is the time for a student to be at the top of the tree, to be up to date with their skills and education, and be the best candidate for a job amongst competitive students and graduates if you're looking for one. So I think the second reason is there are some people now who realize that lifelong learning is going to become key because the market is changing so fast. And I think that links to the first advantage, that if you start to develop pure online degrees and programs, you've now started to develop online lifelong learning, which is bite-sized lifelong learning in chunks for not just 1 year or 3 years of a degree course, but for the next 40 years of your students when they graduate lives. And that's the biggest future potential market of them all, that just-in-time online learning, which I think will be the biggest change for business schools of any over the next 5 years. So just some initial thoughts, Olin, and back to you.
All right. Thank you very much, Andrew. Again, some, I think, noteworthy takeaways here for us. Truly, the times of the last 8-9 months have absolutely accelerated technology integration in higher education. As you mentioned, we all kind of knew it was coming. We all kind of saw some of those presentations about some cutting edge technology that was headed our way. Advancements in learning management systems, in types of offerings that schools could provide in an online setting that were more engaging and interactive, the ability to leverage some of the technologies to bring in people from across the globe to teach. I remember at a conference, what was it, year before last, where we talked about using holograms and bringing people in from large distances. And it seems so futuristic at the time, but truly today, I think are things that we can readily integrate to provide more dynamic engagement opportunities for students and learners. Yeah, here locally, seeing some impact in the market, just from a financial standpoint, as Jeff talked about, the affordability piece is there, but overall, people are still wanting to go back to school to advance their skill set in light of fairly high unemployment situation. But I love this idea of lifelong learning. If we build this properly and we adapt our teaching methods and leveraging the technologies, where it's not just a lecture in the front of the group and everybody, kind of semi-nods off, but somehow we're engaged in this, that we truly can create some lifelong learning opportunities. And from a market business standpoint,